Hey everybody, Dr. Diane, your Libido Doc here. We're going to talk about emotional closeness and sex drive. And this is honestly a very big web kind of conversation because there's so many things that play into emotional closeness, right? There can be simple things of feeling safe in the relationship, both physically, mentally, emotionally, right? There can be things such as stress. For a lot of us that have gone through stressful periods, which pretty much every human has, you might notice if you're anything like me, stress goes up, libido and sex drive goes down. And sometimes there can be this discrepancy, right? Where one person's experiencing more stress in their body and their life than another partner. And that can lead to a disparity of the sexual drive. And sometimes, unfortunately, there can be a vicious cycle where if one person is actually wanting sex more than another, there can be this disparity where one person might feel like they're being let down if they don't get to experience this with their partner. Another person can actually feel that and they can feel exhausted and so tired and so stressed, but they have nothing left to give. And then it's so easy to turn inward and feel senses of guilt and shame and self-blame for not being able to show up to one's partner that way. So it gets really complicated, right? And there can be subtle things that can happen too, where maybe somebody says something, one of the partners says something that's a little bit of a trigger, or maybe you're holding it inside because you've picked the kids up for school 5 days in a row and you're supposed to trade off and your partner got really busy and couldn't do it, right? You know, all of these different things can be triggers and they can be layers, and that can lead to this lack of closeness emotionally. Now, stereotypically, masculine people tend to have the ability to compartmentalize more than the feminine does, right? So that's stereotypically. Now, just because something's a stereotype doesn't mean it's true all the time. But essentially, what tends to happen when somebody is feeling emotionally shut down is that can lead to further dysfunctional sex drive. And the easiest way that I have seen out of this is actually to name it. And I see this in my medical practices, both from the chronic disease I treat as well as from the libido and anti-aging work I do. I see this on both sides where people, when they get a label for a disease process, like let's say they've had chronic pain and it's finally labeled as fibromyalgia. Even though that doesn't fix the pain, it actually gives a level of relief because there's a label and all of a sudden something makes sense. There's a reason, right? So the same goes for emotional closeness and sexuality. When we can actually sometimes label something without judgment, just for like what it is, around like, okay, labeling that one's sex drive is lower, labeling that this has an impact, without judgment, without blame, any of those things. Sometimes by labeling things without judgment and blame, it can take a charge off things. So having a conversation when you're noticing some emotional distance, right? And actually having a conversation and remembering, if you're feeling emotionally distant, your partner may or may not be feeling that way too. And it's not right or wrong if you're not exactly on the same page with that experience. It's just the unique experience of what is. So the idea of naming, like if you're feeling like, wow, I am not feeling emotionally close and that's affecting my libido, that's affecting my ability to show up. Can we talk about this? Are you feeling that way too? Right? And you might find that if you do that, one, there's two things that can happen. One, you might learn that your partner's feeling the same way, which then can lead to conversation. It also can take a charge off when you ask the question, because what that's going to do for your partner is that helps them understand that this is your experience and you want to work together with them to help feel more close and help you have a better drive, while at the same time honoring that it's okay that they have their unique experience. And the idea with this is you could look at it as compromise. You could look at it as finding something that's better than a compromise. Compromise is kind of a tricky word, right? Because sometimes it's really like the definition of compromise in some ways is like both parties lose, which I'm not a big fan of. I like it better when both parties win. So the idea with this is like, okay, what do both people want in a relationship? Like, what does the individual want? What do they want together? A lot of times they want to feel connected. They want to feel loved. They want to feel valued, right? So there's this discrepancy in emotional closeness that's leading to, say, sexual dysfunction. Then we want to come back and say, with each partner, what types of things will help them feel those things they want to feel in order to get back to healthy sexuality. And when we can name that, then sometimes we can find unique ways of actually attaining that. So for example, somebody that is feeling, okay, they're overwhelmed and they're stressed out and all these things, perhaps partner B isn't feeling that way. And perhaps partner B is like, oh, I can help your nervous system relax in these sorts of ways. Can I do this for you? Then all of a sudden we're feeling emotionally connected. The partners feel like they're working together and nobody's doing anything wrong. So it's about being able to come together and being able to express what we're feeling, but also own what we're feeling and realize that our partner may or may not have the same experience. Now, of course, there's other things to talk about when it comes to interrelational conversations, right? We always do want to, if there's harm done, we always want to take our part in owning our role in that and name harm specifically. But that's a different kind of conversation, which we can talk about later. What I'm talking about here is really if you're noticing that you're not emotionally connected and that's impacting your sex drive, actually naming that that's happening in a way that's not saying that just because you're feeling that your partner has to feel that, but being able to say that and being able to say like, hey, I'm not feeling this, and like, I really, really want to be emotionally connected. You're so valuable to me, and I really want to work on our sex drive and our connectivity here. Can we explore this conversation together to figure out how we might, have this emotional connection together again? And I'm also curious if this is just my experience or if you are also feeling a disconnect. And I want to know what you need to be supported as well, right? So we want to make sure that these conversations are done in a way where we're really keeping it safe for the other person to express, where we get to express ourselves, but we're doing it in a way of basically acknowledging our own feelings and knowing that they're not going to necessarily be the same feeling that a partner might have. So please do ask me questions on this. There's a lot of nuances with this stuff, and there's a lot of different ways we can piece this out. So please do ask questions. Again, I'm the Libido Doc. You can find me and information about how to work with me and my Libido team in the show notes below. Please do subscribe if it's been helpful, and I'll see you in another video.